Did you hear all of this talk about Trump maybe flirting with the idea of a mass amnesty for illegal immigrants? What's that all about? You may have seen yesterday a story circulating around Washington, D.C. that exploded nationwide over a suggestion that President Trump might be entertaining the idea of a sweeping amnesty deal for illegal immigrants. It was an odd thing to hear. Our own Charlie Kirk, one of our partners there over on the Salem News Channel, he broke this story and talked about how he had been hearing it from some well-placed sources in D.C. And this sort of started the ball rolling. Here, take a look at what Charlie had to say yesterday.
$5 billion for ICE. We're going to talk more about the profundity and the importance of this bill, but it is of great urgent necessity that we cover what is coming next. And yes, we are going to talk about Epstein. We're also going to have live coverage from the awful and the unspeakable tragedy happening in Kirk County and near Hunt, Texas. Just a national tragedy with the flooding issue in Texas. But you would think that, hey, we get $175 billion for ICE. We're going to get mass deportations. We're going to be able to have now the largest deportation effort ever. Yes, in theory. But in practice, there's something else afoot. Literally, the day before President Donald Trump was signing the big, beautiful bill, I got a couple phone calls from people that you would call members of the ruling class. A lot of money and a lot of connections. They said, Charlie, isn't this amazing? We passed the big, beautiful bill. I said, oh, yes, sir. And they said, now we need mass amnesty. What? I said, we haven't even signed the bill yet. They said, yeah, these deportations, we're going to lose the midterms because of the deportations. The people on the right, they'll understand. And we need to come to the middle, and we need to legalize the 25 million people here in this country. I was speechless. Because here I am actually thinking, a little naive, we're going to sign this big, beautiful bill, and we're actually going to get mass deportations uninterrupted from an asymmetrical attack. So we have somewhere between 20 to 50 million illegal aliens in this country. We don't actually know the numbers. These are all guesstimates. These are all just approximations. And there is a movement afoot as I am doing this broadcast. And this is bigger than anything with Epstein. This is bigger than anything with tax cuts. It is happening right now in Washington, D.C. And I can say this from firsthand experience, that people are pushing President Trump for amnesty. They are pushing him for mass legalization of illegals. Now, President Donald Trump, of course, would never push for amnesty. But President Donald Trump said something at a rally on July 3rd, and my phone lit up like you wouldn't imagine.
All right. So a couple of things about this, and we're going to break it down for you. It's odd. Everything about this is odd, and the way this story originated is odd in my book. And that's just me talking, my opinion. First of all, I don't watch Charlie's show I don't watch many people's show very often because I don't want to influence how I do my show. But it's just an interesting monologue to deliver that he's referencing his notes on there, as you saw on his screen, where he talks about these very wealthy ruling class types that are pushing for amnesty. And I don't quite understand why he wouldn't name them. Right? What's the downside of naming them? I mean, if these are people who have political ideas that are contrary to what you believe are good for this country, and you think that this could be an incredibly damaging, destructive thing, which I'm pretty sure Charlie agrees with, what's the downside of telling us who these people are? They should be revealed. They should be outed. Their names should be named, right? And what Charlie is referring to in terms of what President Trump said the other day at a rally, this happened in Iowa. It was right after July 4th when he signed the bill. The next day, was it the next day? I think it was the next day. He went to Des Moines and he gave a speech. And he said this about farm workers specifically.
Tom Homan. And we're working on legislation right now. Susie, right? We're working on legislation right now where Farmers, look, they know better. They work with them for years. You had cases where, not here, but just even over the years, where people have worked for a farm on a farm for 14, 15 years, and they get thrown out pretty viciously. And we can't do it. We got to work with the farmers and people that have hotels and leisure properties too. We're going to work with them, and we're going to work very strong and smart. And we're going to put you in charge. We're going to make you responsible. And I think that that's going to make a lot of people happy. Now, serious radical right people, who I also happen to like a lot, they may not be quite as happy, but they'll understand, won't they? Do you think so? Madam Secretary, look at you with a white hat on. Do you think they'll understand that? You're the one that brought this whole situation up.
All right. Serious right-wing radical people. I'd love to know who he's talking about exactly with that. Again, name names, President Trump. Who do you think is a serious right-wing radical person? He's talking to Madam Secretary. Madam Secretary would be the Secretary of Agriculture. That would be Secretary Rollins. And he mentioned Susie. Susie, of course, Susie Wiles is Chief of Staff, where they're talking about working on legislation that would help long-term farm workers, as he put it here, 14, 15 years, who are now potentially being swept up and deported, which, again, is a curious thing, too, because we have a temporary farmer visa program in this country. It's called the H-2A visa. It's for seasonal temporary farm workers. Whenever they say, oh, your crops are going to rot in the ground because no one will be there to pick them. No, we have a program right now for workers to come in and harvest crops for the agriculture industry. And they can come here legally as temporary workers and seasonal workers, then go back home. It's actually a very robust program. Hundreds of thousands utilize it legally, and there's no cap on it. You can bring in as many as you want. They just can't stay for more than a year, and they got to go home. That's all. And then they can come back. And there were many different industries that utilize this. Where I live off the Chesapeake Bay in Washington, D.C., we're known for our blue crabs in Maryland, right? Best crab cakes you're ever going to have. And there are women who come from third world nations in Latin America who, for some reason, through generations, specialize in harvesting the meat from crabs. They're great at it. They're faster than anybody else you're ever going to find. In the crabbing industry in the Chesapeake Bay region, Virginia and Maryland, they import these agriculture workers on H-2A visas every year because it's a seasonal job when the crabs are ripe for the picking. And these women come in on their visas legally. They pick the meat off the crabs that become your crab cakes, and then they go home, and everybody's happy. So what is it we're talking about here exactly? Well, today, at a big announcement revealing that we are going to shut down Chinese ownership of farmlands in America, Secretary Rollins addressed this issue. It started with Charlie Kirk yesterday, as you just saw, and within 24 hours, a cabinet secretary had to address it head on. That's how big this story got so quickly. And here she is.
There will be no amnesty. The mass deportations continue, but in a strategic way, and we move the workforce towards automation and 100% American participation, which again, with 34 million people, able-bodied adults on Medicaid, we should be able to do that fairly quickly.
There you go. There will be no amnesty. The mass deportations will continue. That from your Secretary of Agriculture. Now, let's break down specifically what we're talking about here in terms of the H-2A visa program. And this is all public information. You can find it on the Department of Agriculture's website. You can find it through your favorite ChatGPT or Grok search engine or AI. It's very simple. I found it and verified all this information myself. H-2A farm worker visa program, a legal permit to work farms as a foreign laborer. It takes about 8 to 12 weeks to get the work permit, and your employer, the farm, will be able to go through that process. There's no cap. It's based on employer demand. So if a farmer says, I need 1,000 people from a foreign land to come in here so that my crops don't rot in the ground, because that's what Democrats tell you, we need our slave labor to come in and do this, they can bring in as many people as they want. It costs about $200 per employee, and that's reimbursed, by the way, in the first paycheck. That's the law. Go check it out in the Department of Agriculture. Nearly 400,000 workers came in legally under that program last year. The crops don't rot in the ground. It's not going to happen. It was always a lie. So what are we talking about with employees who are sitting there who have been here for 14, 15 years? See, that's the problem. They came in here on an H-2A and then they never went home. They overstayed that legal visa that we've opened up for them so that they can come in, but they've never left. So is it bad that they're facing deportation? I mean, I suppose on a personal level for them it is. You know what else is bad? That they exploited our legal system and broke the law and continue to break the law year after year after year. That the farm was able to exploit them year after year after year. If an agricultural concern or farming industry participant is in some way circumventing the existing legal H-2A visa program, it's because they're either lazy or they're greedy, or they want to exploit people outside of the legal protections that they would get from the federal government. But it's not your fault. It's not our fault. It's not the federal government's fault. And if there's a problem with the program, go ahead and change it. But the uproar over even the suggestion that the president would grant amnesty, as Charlie floated on his program at Salem News Channel yesterday, it hit hard across the board. Even this guy was a little exercised about it. Just an hour ago, he hit it straight on, and he seemed to confirm that these unnamed people in Washington, D.C. are pushing for this.
This is why we're going to go after we are going after the H-1B programs. Now, she said later, Labor Secretary is working on some H-2A, because this was the rumor, this is what people's heads were blowing up. And I'm not saying they weren't thinking about doing it, but they're going to slide an amnesty into an executive order around H-2As. That is not, at least right now, it's not happening. She said, no way, no amnesty. Brooke Rowland, Secretary of Agriculture, couldn't be more adamant about that. Strategic deportations, mass deportations. We'll break that down. Mass deportations now, amnesty never. Let me repeat the mantra. Mass deportations now, amnesty never.
I do like hearing my friend John Kahn's song playing in the background there. So he just repeated it as well. He just said, I'm not saying they didn't try to get it in there, but it looks like it's off the table for now. Who's they? Tell us who they is. Why are you only telling us half the story? If you know who they are, then tell us so we know who we're talking about. It's frustrating. As a consumer of the news, it's frustrating, let alone someone who also relays and tries to expand and explain the news to you. That's why I like this guy so much. Both of these guys, in fact, Jesse Waters and Stephen Miller. Stephen Miller was on last night with all of these rumors swirling about amnesty and all of the powerful political entities that appear to be trying to push and pull and tug and rip apart what is now a very effective program. He also spoke on the horrific stories. We covered one of them yesterday as we had ICE agents who were shot at by a gunman in McLean, Texas. And then later in the day yesterday, we learned of a ambush plot with the arrests of 11 co-conspirators, all trying to set up and assassinate ICE agents, all a direct result of the rhetoric we're hearing from the left. Stephen Miller hit all of it head on and very well, as usual.
Why, Jesse? What is this all about? This is the central struggle in the West. The Democrat Party's objective is to flood the West with millions upon millions of illegals from the developing world, from the poor nations of the world, the failed states of the world, the collapsing states of the world, believing that in so doing, they will collapse the West. They will collapse the middle class. They will collapse the population that has lived here before the migrants came. And in so doing, they think in the rubble of that, they can rule. They can sit on top of the pile of ashes. Ask yourself this: why is it that Democrats are so insistent that unlimited numbers of illegals from countries that are incapable of managing their own affairs come here? Countries like Somalia, countries like Haiti, countries that have no history of successful self-government, And they want unlimited numbers of illegals from those countries and refugees from those countries to come here with no chance at the pace, the scale, the scope of arrivals at being able to assimilate and integrate into the American way of life. What has it done to our schools? What has it done to our hospitals? What has it done to just traffic in our cities? Every issue that affects our quality of life, Jesse, public safety, drugs, crime, education, healthcare, waiting in the emergency room, are all exacerbated, worsened, and undermined by mass illegal immigration. ICE officers are heroes, and they need the support of the American people. President Trump is liberating our towns, just as he was promised, just as the American people overwhelmingly voted to give him a mandate to do just 5 months ago.
Yeah, and I would
Why-
add to that list of countries that are dysfunctional. What did he say? Haiti and Somalia. How about Uganda as well? And it's funny, Somalia and Uganda have two very high-profile refugees. One of them a sitting congresswoman for the Democrats. The other one, the nominee for mayor of New York for the Democrats. They come here through our Amnesty program. They come from their war-savaged, war-torn, poverty-stricken nations, and they seek a better life. And suddenly, within a couple of years, they're holding elected office and they're lecturing us about how America has to be restructured, you know, more in keeping with the country they came from. What the hell are you doing here then? Miller's absolutely right about that. If you thought that the 2024 presidential election was going to be the end of this conversation, if you thought that Trump enforcing our immigration laws and our border security in such a robust fashion in the first few months, shutting down illegal border crossings, that was going to be the end of this, if you thought that passing the reconciliation package that increased funding for the border security as well as for deportations was going to be the end of this, you're wrong. This is going to be a daily fight. It's never over because the political left never gives up. And understand something, the fight doesn't just take place in cities like Los Angeles and places like MacArthur Park or in legislative bodies in Washington, D.C. The fight takes place in your culture. Your fight takes place in your local movie theater. They want to inject their political, cultural narrative into everything that you do. Perfect case in point is the big Superman movie that's opening this week. James Gunn, the guy who runs the DC comic book studio venture, is the director of that film. And he specifically has framed this movie in the context of Superman being an immigrant to this nation.
It is exactly what the movie is about. I think that, like, we support our people, you know, we love our immigrants. We love, yes, Superman is an immigrant. And yes, the people that we support in this country are immigrants. And if you don't like that, then you're not American.
If you don't agree with me politically, you're not American. If you don't like that, by the way, we love immigrants. We have to say it all the time. We just don't like the ones who break our laws as their first move in this country. By the way, Superman, I mean, I guess he's an immigrant. I mean, is it okay to call him an alien? Because I know that that term is now politically incorrect. I guess he was an undocumented superhero. But he was literally an alien from another country. By the way, James, he was adopted by an all-American family who raised him in Kansas and taught him values and principles, truth, justice, and the American way, by the way, something that this guy left out of his new Superman movie. I love that he's lecturing us all about what it is to be an American, and yet he left that out of the descriptor of Superman in this film, you know, truth, justice, and the American way. Now it's truth, justice, and, you know, whatever the UN comes up with today or something like that. By the way, by the same warped analogy, sure, Superman's an immigrant. You know who else was an immigrant? General Zod. He was also an immigrant. He came here to destroy the place. Are we supposed to welcome him too? Is it un-American to oppose General Zod, James Gunn? Oh, God. Am I now revealing myself to be the comic book nerd that I am? Let's move on from Gunn and move on to one of the actors in the film. This is Nathan Fillion. He also responded to the controversy over Superman being an immigrant.
Oh, James has said that Superman is an immigrant story, that it is political. MAGA today was getting a little upset that he called Superman an immigrant. I wanted to get your reaction.
Somebody needs a hug. It's just a movie, guys. It's just a movie.
Well, if it's just a movie, then why don't you just leave your politics out of it? I love that they go out of their way to make a movie that should just be a movie, that should just be about superheroes and action and fun and special effects and CGI. By the way, why do we need another Superman movie? Is it me? Or do they make a Superman or a Batman movie like every 4 years? Now we're really going to tell the origin story of this DC superhero. No, we already saw that. If I have to see that little kid's parents get shot in an alley in Gotham City one more time, I'm going to lose it. Enough with the Batman movies. And please don't stand there and lecture me and tell me that it's just a movie. Relax, check your brain at the door, when you're going out of your way to tell me that you are making a political movie, not a superhero movie. I can check my brain at the door and enjoy the entertainment of it and oversee your obvious heavy-handed politics. But don't insult my intelligence when you actually tell me that it's heavy-handed politics and then condescend and patronize me by saying, hey, it's just a movie, everybody. By the way, one other thing. There's a real villain in this entire Superman scenario that we're finishing up with here. And it's actually not James Gunn, the director, and it's not this guy, the actor. It's that idiot with the bow tie for Variety. You heard how he just asked that question. And lost in the shuffle here, excuse me, was another time James Gunn was asked the same question here. Look at this time. And look at how he tries to deflect the narrative that this Variety reporter is trying to force into the conversation.
You said it's an immigrant story. It's a political movie. MAGA today is going nuts. What do you have to say to MAGA?
Before he even answers that, what the hell is that question? This is a reporter for Variety. MAGA's going nuts. No, MAGA didn't go nuts. MAGA's going nuts now. But this is this Variety reporter. Lispy Variety reporter with a bow tie who decides to confront all of these people on the red carpet and start screaming, MAGA's going nuts, MAGA's going nuts. How do you respond? How do you respond? Thinking the Variety is going to give him ink, and Variety does, in fact, give him ink. But look at how he tries to deflect the question here before it gets pressed.
I don't have anything. I think this movie's for everybody. I don't have anything to say to anybody. Like I'm not here to judge people, you know. I think this is a movie about kindness, and I think that's something everyone can relate to.
Okay, I'll accept that. Of course, now I don't believe you, but I'll accept it. So there it is. I mean, whether there's a push for amnesty or not, I couldn't tell you. It appears that there was, because the Secretary of Agriculture addressed it today and said, no, it's not going to happen. So if it's not going to happen, I guess that there was some discussion that it might happen. But you've got influential people who are hearing from very powerful interests that there is still a push for it, and yet we don't know who they are. But as of now, the only push for amnesty and the only push for radical immigration policies are coming from the creators of the Superman movie, which thankfully has no real impact as long as you do what I think you're going to do, which is not go see it.